Hello everybody. My name is René and I'm presenting today BASF at the Forum of Fossil-Free Plastics in Oslo, which is taken due to Corona crisis, this time in the digital way. So I must confess, for me it is also the first time that I present on the digital platform. That's a little bit new for me as well. So please keep your fingers crossed that this presentation goes quite well. So I would like to show to you how BASF is approaching plastic waste and the reuse of plastic waste, as by matter of fact, we are a significant producer of plastics. But let me start to introduce BASF first to you, then a little bit how we produce chemicals, how we produce plastics, and how we deal in the end of life with those materials. So I would like to introduce BASF first, and I would start with our purpose. We create chemistry for a sustainable future. So what does that mean? Let me guide you through this. We, as BASF, want to be regarded as thought and action leader in the area of sustainability, especially in the chemical sector. We already introduced and increased the role of sustainability in all our business decisions. That will mean whenever we take a business decision, if it is highly profitable, sustainability evaluation is obligatory for everything. So no matter of fact, if the business decision is highly profitable, if there is a negative impact in sustainability, we will not perform this decision. So we will take away business from BASF if the sustainability is not increased. Secondly, we have measures established that help us to get more and more sustainable. One of those is we want to decouple our CO2 emissions from our organic growth, and this is done by our carbon management program. And on the other hand, we are very much looking into cutting-edge technologies like ChemCycling to get a broader access to a more circular way of getting raw materials. So let me introduce BASF a little bit deeper. But before we start with ChemCycling and carbon management, let me give a short introduction to BASF that you have a rough feeling how big we are. Our chemistry is present in almost all industries. In your daily life, you cannot feel chemicals, but they are present all around. Our company has a revenue of around 4.5 billion euros, with a sales roughly 16 billion euros worldwide. We are employing almost 120,000 people. So that gives you an impression how big this company is acting. And yes, we are a global player. Please take a look at the next slide. As you can see here on the map, BASF is distributed all around the world. We are operating very big production sites we call Verbund sites, I will introduce later, and we are operating 6 of them. Headquarters is Ludwigshafen in the middle of Europe, together with Antwerp, which is the second. Then we have 2 big production sites in the US, and we have also 2 big production sites in Asia. And we are currently under evaluation and construction of a 3rd very big production site in Shenyang in the south of China. So yes, acting globally, producing locally, this is a typical sign for BASF. So with such huge production sites all around the world, you might ask yourself, what is the BASF company acting in? Because normal people like you and me do not understand where our products are present. But I can assure you our products are present in your daily life. You find us everywhere. In textiles, in coating of words, everywhere in digitalization, our products are present. Plastics, coatings, and so on. So I will not go into details, but what we see, this chemical industry is still a growth industry, especially when we are facing the global megatrends like growth of population. I would say roughly 10 billion people we expect by 2050 on this planet, and a strong tendency of urbanization, a high demand in energy as well as in food. So for all these challenges we are facing with the global development, what we see is you need chemistry as an enabler. And that's where we support the development of the society and the development of every country in the world. Next is how can we produce chemicals on a sustainable way and plastics on a sustainable way. So what I would like to show you is a little bit more in detail how we operate and what we can do to get our chemicals more sustainably produced. In this case, if you want to change from a fossil-based industry, which in fact we are today, to a non-fossil industry, you have to understand how we operate, and then you can start to change things. But let me introduce first how we operate, and then it becomes quite clear how you can shift our production, for example, for a more recycled-based industry. So first of all, let me give you a picture about how do we operate in our mega sites. What you can see here quite nicely is a picture of Ludwigshafen. This is the entire BASF site where everything started. The area you see here is 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. And there's production site next to production site, which has a very strong benefit in regards of logistics. You don't have to ship those goods all around the world. You can just process it next door. So this is saving a lot of transportation costs, for example. And then as a chemical producer, we are always dealing with energy. So every process we run has a kind of energy demand or energy output. Some processes have an energy output, some a demand, and they are quite nicely arranged next to each other so that every process we use can also benefit from the waste energy from another process. These concepts of a highly integrated production site is very, very effective, and this saves a lot of CO2 equivalents if you calculate this. And I will show you how much it is. So if you look at BASF in total, we are operating 6 of those Verbund sites, as mentioned. And by savings in logistics and in energy use and so on and others, you can save up to 3.7 million tons of CO2 emissions every year. That was the figure from 2018. It varies a little bit around the years, but in general, we are still on a very, very effective way. This savings are a result from a long-term development. So what I would like to show you here on the slide is what did we do in the last 30 years? In 1990, we started with the monitoring of our CO2 emissions. That was the time of the Kyoto Protocol. And during that time, we reduced our CO2 output by 50%. That sounds quite simple, but nevertheless, in the same time, and please remember, we are a fossil-based industry, we increased our output in products by more than 100%. So double output by, in the same time, reducing of greenhouse gas emissions of 50%. That's magnificent for the chemical industry, but it shows quite nice that we are in our heart striving for effectiveness, striving to use every waste we have. This is reflected here. And we want to maintain our growth, which is roughly 4% every year, and in the same time stay with our CO2 output constant. That is getting now a little bit more challenging because looking back, the low-hanging fruits have been harvested. And let's face it, the current situation is not on increased CO2 output. It's not possible to increase this anymore. So we are facing, after 2030, we are facing a time where we clearly have to even more reduce our CO2 output until more and more climate neutral. So then it comes to play where carbon management is starting. And BASF is analyzing very carefully what are the biggest CO2 emitters, for example, at BASF. I will show you. So what you see here now is the biggest CO2 emitters at BASF. It's the power plants. We are running a power plant, highly effectiveness. And the second one is already our heart, our starting point, the steam cracker. I will come to that a little bit later. But those two are, let's say, the fundamentals of BASF, energy and steam cracker. And then we are talking about measures. Can we purchase renewable energy? How can we substitute the CO2 emission of the steam cracker, for example, with energy? And so on. These are measures we are considering very carefully what is possible and what not. So I was talking a little bit about CO2. Now I would like to go a little bit more into the raw material side. So how does a chemical production site like the one of BASF, how do we operate? So this is how we operate. We introduce crude oil or a fraction of crude oil, which is called naphtha, into our Verbund site. And this is this is broken down to small molecules in a plant which is called steam cracker. This is the starting point within BASF, our heart of our Verbund. And after that, we are generating small molecules out of naphtha, like ethylene and propylene, and they are processed to plastics and to other products in the subsequent production sites, which are next to each other. So this is a very efficient way, using side products, using waste energy to get to our current products. Overall, what you can see here, this is a very, very linear thinking from starting material to product without any loop, just by using the side products. So this is the typical development for the last 100, 150 years in the chemical industry. But now we are facing a time where we'd like to recycle or close the loop again, that we can get back to starting material from the beginning. So how is this done? So this sounds very simple. Make it circular. Just take waste plastic and introduce it as new feedstock. Unfortunately, this does not work. In a scale like our industry we are running, it is very important that we keep our impurities under control. So that what you have to do for a ChemCycling process is very simple. You have to sort the plastic wastes from other wastes up front. And then you have to convert the plastic waste into a kind of pyrolysis oil, for example. And this pyrolysis oil is then purified to yield another starting material for BASF. And then we can start to take the material in BASF. We can use it as a typical naphtha, as a typical crude oil for our processes. We deliver products. You can use your products, and in the end of life, you put your products back into the waste treatment. This is the circle how we think about it, but there are traps all over the way. So impurities like colors, like metals, which are connected to the waste, are disturbing these processes. So there's a lot of development to be done here to make this work. And then I would like to show you how can we introduce the recycled material back into BASF. So the thing is, we have recycled material, and what you do from that, you generate a ChemCycling naphtha, as I showed before. This ChemCycling naphtha is almost identical to the natural naphtha you know from the oil fraction. And then you introduce the ChemCycling naphtha together with the oil-based naphtha into our steam cracker, the starting point of our chemical production site. Then the ChemCycling naphtha and normal naphtha are blended. You generate a mixture of organic molecules, ethylene, propylene, as mentioned before, which are then used in the exact process we are always operating. So you might also understand that this is very important for our customers, that they are used to a specific product with specific properties. If you change the raw material, this product properties might change as well. And by entering with recycled material at the front end, we can guarantee that in the output, the product is identical to the fossil-based product, which is very important for the pharmaceutical industry, for the automotive industry, and almost all of our customers need a very unique starting material. Unfortunately, we are talking about volumes, and the ChemCycling naphtha volumes, lucky guess, if we are lucky, we have 5,000 tons of material per year available. A typical steam cracker in Ludwigshafen is consuming roughly, let's be a little unconcrete, but more than 1 million tons per year is consumed by a steam cracker. So we are talking by volumes about a little cup of ChemCycling naphtha in the big lake of fossil naphtha we are using, and that makes it very challenging for us. So little naphtha is more expensive than big fossil naphtha. And that is something where we struggle. We have to pass our costs for the higher expenditures for our raw materials. We have to pass this on to our customers. And that's done by allocation. So if we find a customer who is willing to pay an increased price for raw materials for a ChemCycled product, we can offer this. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, we have more requests right now for products based on ChemCycled naphtha. People are really willing to pay a premium on that material, but we have not material available. And that's getting to the challenging point. That's where we are in a, let's say, uncomfortable situation we want to get out. And then it is interesting to see that the development also here in Norway, also in Sweden, is very interesting and very forward-looking. And then Oslo and Norway are getting very interesting for us as well, because the company Quantafuel, we recently invested a share into Quantafuel, is located in Oslo, and they are developing and running a continuous process for the recycling of plastic waste into new feedstock, for example, for the chemical industry. And BASF teamed up with Quantafuel to support them in technical expertise on industrial scale and also on marketing. So this is something where we can have a joint development, and we are very curious. As I mentioned before, the development today is in the childhood phase. We are talking about a planned output of 16,000 tons at Quantafuel in Skive. This is more or less a starting point, a first step. The technologies have to prove that it is working, and then it could be scaled up to our sizes at Ludwigshafen, where we need, for example, millions of tons. So this is the challenging point today, and this is where today we are very, very curious. I am very curious what is happening. Does the process run? And that's, let's say, one of those areas where BASF is highly interested in. If this is running properly, you can think about rolling this out all over cities in the Nordic region and all around. And that gives us the opportunity to use plastic waste as a new feedstock for the chemical industry. But it's not safe now. Let's see, let's wait, be careful, keep your fingers crossed, and we are very, very, let's say, positive for the future. Thank you. And with this, I would like to end my presentation. And with this, I would like to end my presentation. And I would like to end my presentation to thank you for your kind attention. If you have any questions, as I mentioned before, it's the first time for me. I don't know how this online meeting will run. Nevertheless, if you have any question, you will find my email address right above here about this video. Please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm sitting in Gothenburg. I'm searching for new opportunities for the chemical industry. Focus on renewables, but also on, let's say, different feedstock from fossil feedstock. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the day. Thank you.